All right, welcome to another episode of the Mind Connect. Oh, sorry, Badass Clinician
Whoops.
podcast. I do too many podcasts, bro. And again, this is a good thing, right? Because I've been recording the Mind Connect podcast like sometime like twice, three times a week now. But anyways, we're back with the Badass Clinician podcast, and as you can see, Chestin's on vacation, which is good. We always preach that. I'm going on vacation later next month for my birthday, so
Nice.
I'm excited for that. But right now for me it's grind season, right? Even I think you and I talked about one of the mastermind that we met is understanding what season you're in.
Yes.
And for me, the next 3 months is an absolute grind season, making sure we're getting leads in, making sure we get our, plan of care fulfill, which is a huge one. What about you, man? What season are you in, dude?
Man, I'm definitely in grind season as well. Although it's, as you can tell, I'm working on vacation. So, it's one of those where I'm trying to maintain that good balance. But, I'm at a point where, hustling, working on a lot of things kind of behind the scenes and, getting some things rolling. So it's definitely that time of life, so to speak, where it's hustle and grind and go, but then also occasionally slow down to kind of relax, spend some quality time with the family, just kind of recharge my batteries. And then when we get back to the office next week, it's go time again.
Yeah, I do like breaking things down in different season. And the way I looked at it is, like operation season where you tighten everything up, right? Then you have your marketing season.
Yep.
Then your fulfillment season.
Yep.
Right. And then from there, you can even go back to sales, right?
Yep.
I would break it down like this. So like Q1, I would say tightening up the operation, right? Q2 is all about marketing,
Yep.
getting the name out there. Q3, sales, making sure the nurturing process, the follow-up process is great. Q4, fulfillment, which means clinically speaking, we have to be on par. And the way I structure it is that Q1, generally slow, especially in January. So it's give us time to just tighten everything up on the operation side, from the billing side, from the finance side. And then when you go into Q2, you want to start getting your marketing heavy so people know that you exist. A, B, they know what you're about and what solution you can provide to solve their problem to the ideal patient. And then once you get in front of people, Q3, the follow-up, the nurturing, the sequences, getting people to earn that trust, to actually commit, invest, and come in. And when you if everything going the right way, the way you plan, you should have an influx of lead, new patients coming in. And then once new patients coming in, guess what's going to break? It's going to be the fulfillment. Yeah. It's going to be the clinical. That's when we start hosting courses. We start taking continuing education courses, making sure that, our clinicians are up to date with every single thing. So that way we deliver the best outcome. And then we just rinse and repeat all of that again.
Yeah.
And based on even like the succession staircase that you and I would always refer to, if you're going to be a true business owner, you have to be able to see what season you're in, because if you're in a constant grind season, then that's when you get burned out. Right. Yep. And then you just kind of feel like you're spinning your wheels, because I know that feeling, that feeling all too well.
Yeah. I think you've got it broken down by quarter, because you've been at this for a while, so you've kind of gotten in a cadence and a rhythm. I think a lot of times when you're trying to scale up, it's not so much just a quarter. Like there may or may not be a defined point to the season. Like you've got objectives you're trying to achieve, and initially as you're trying to grow, it's you got to get more leads, you got to get more sales, and so you're heavily focused on that. Well, as you start to get those leads and sales, then maybe it's your fulfillment starts to break down because you've exceeded your capacity, so to speak. So then you have to shift over to, you've got the leads, you've got the sales. Now you got to shift over to that fulfillment to make sure that you're delivering excellent results. Well, as that happens, then you realize, oh, I need to hire more. I've got to train my staff better. And so it then shifts over that. So it's like, you just kind of go through these cycles of focusing on the specific, the different aspects and areas of the business that you need to in order to be able to grow. And it's just being aware. I think that's the biggest thing, is just being aware of where you're at. What are you trying to accomplish in that moment at that time in order to achieve your objectives? And just recognizing that in that season, so to speak, like that's where your focus needs to be. You know, and ideally, again, it's hopefully you're not always in grind season, because you'll burn out and you'll
Mm-hmm.
get tired, you know, but just being aware of where you're at and being able to kind of step back, assess, and then implement in the different areas where you really need to focus and grow is critical to getting your business where you want it to go.
Yeah, and if you can communicate what season you're in, especially in the business, you can then communicate with the team. So they is laying
Yes.
expectation, right? So for us, next month, August, college athletes going back to
Mm-hmm.
school, right? We had a meeting yesterday. We list down like who's leaving,
Yep.
right? So like, hey, 13 athletes are leaving. What does that mean? I just say, hey, that means next month I'm going to focus on getting as many evals in as
Mm-hmm.
possible. We're aiming for
Yep.
30, right? That's going to replace the people who are
Yep.
leaving. So I was like, just letting you guys know, if we grind next month, we're going to have a way better
Mm-hmm.
September, right? And, just something that, other agency wouldn't talk about. And again, and I say this because they're not treating,
Yeah.
right? Or there's other people that are coming in and they're not healthcare provider themselves. So they don't understand what it's like to be in the trenches to make sure that the quality of cares get
Yeah.
delivered. And because I'm still in there and because I enjoy being in there, I can always spot check of what we need to do. Right. And for me, when it comes to fulfillment, which, you know, people always get neglect, right? People
Mm-hmm.
always talk about new leads, sales
Yeah.
conversion, but they don't talk about
Yeah.
fulfillment. How good is your fulfillment right now? That's always need to get spot checked,
Yep.
right? The one thing you and I built together was to add that the NPS, the Net Promoter
Mm-hmm.
Scores in, like right after every IEs to see if it's above a
Yep.
9, right? 9 out of
Yep.
10, right? Industry standard for healthcare is
Yep.
7, right? So you want to be at a high end service, you need to be way above industry
Yep.
standard. And every time someone come in for an IE, they fill that out. And if it's below
Yep.
a 9, I get an email, my ops manager get an email, my clinic director get an
Mm-hmm.
email. So that way we can call that IE and say, hey, what
Where
expectation
did we
did we
fall
not meet?
short? Yeah. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, that's going to help with your fulfillment process so much so.
Yeah. And I think
And
also too, working with athletes, like there are definitely seasons to athletic events and and
mhm,
and team sports and things like that. And so recognizing and realizing what that sequence, what that cadence, what that rhythm is, helps you to control those ups and downs, those peaks and those valleys. Like you said, you're losing 13 athletes next month because you're going back to school. Well, you know that you've got to start ahead of time to start backfilling and making sure that you have enough IEs coming in to be able to, make up for that loss. But then just looking to the calendar ahead and just realizing, okay, what season are we in? Where are they at in that training cycle? And whether it's high school, college, or pro athletes playing a particular sport, or whether it's, weekend athletes that are just active, they don't necessarily leave to go off to school, but there are definitely seasons to athletic events. And so just
mhm.
being aware of that and being mindful of that as you're looking down the road and as you're planning with your team is going to help you kind of even out those ups and the downs that just naturally happen in business.
Yeah, and for us, right? If I know that we have athletes who are leaving, and if I look at our productivity, next month, so like our goal is like by the time we hit the halfway point of this month, we want the halfway point of next month to be almost
Mm-hmm.
filled, right? So that's when it comes to like tightening up that operation, the scheduling
Yep.
system, and all of that stuff, and even relaying the importance of sticking to plan
Yep.
of care,
Yep.
right? So it's always twofold. And I think that's good too. Is like if you start talking in season, what season you're in personally and in your business, you can then have conversation with your team members based on what season
Yeah.
they're in their life and where they see themselves
Yeah.
going, right?
Yeah. I think that's important. Again, developing that culture internally, within the team. It's you want people to look forward to coming to work, and if they feel like, they're only theirs, to pump out patients or whatever the case may be. If there isn't that feeling that they belong, that they're a part of something bigger, and that goes down to understanding who they are and what their goals and what their objectives are and what season their life is in. If you're not aware of those things, you're going to have disgruntled employees. You're not going to have a team that wants to work for you to help you build your vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was listening to Layla Hamosi podcast this morning, and she was talking about one thing you can do to make sure that you have the best season, whatever season you're in, is to spot the right talent, right? Because everything that we're trying to do, right, the system we build, it has to do with good system, with good people operating it. And to get good people, you need to be able to spot talent. Like the notes I took down was like the first thing she said was you need to be able to spot someone's potential, right? So does this person have the potential to do the work that you want them to do or solve the problem for you in the future? Right. So that's the first one. The second one was, do they have the drive to do it? Right. So if they have the potential and they have the drive, so they check the boxes. And then the last thing is that are they able to, manage themselves in some way? Like, can they keep their ego in check, and can they also bring people with them? Right. I think that's the last part is probably the hardest thing, right? Especially if you're looking at things in season and you're in grind season, and you appointed someone to be, let's say, a senior, PTs or a director or whatever it is, that's part of your leadership team. And if you're in grind season, this person is not in grind season, then it set the wrong message, right? Because then it's not a unison approach. Again, sport analogy, when team are making a playoff push, everyone needs to understand that they're making a playoff push. Yeah. Have you watched that show Receiver
I
on
started watching
Netflix?
it the other day.
Dude, so good.
Yeah.
So good. So my favorite thing so far is episode 5.
Yeah, I'm only one episode in. So.
Dan Campbell. Okay, all right. So episode 5, spoiler alert. Dan Campbell, again, great leader, right? He turned that whole Detroit Lions around. He got everyone to stand up, and there's like this, there's a stat in the back of the meeting room, and he asked people to read, like, hey, last playoff win was 1993. Last divisional win was 1991, something like that, right? And then he just let people like say it out loud, and then he said, okay, the time is now. We're going to change the course of our destiny. Here's what we're going to do. We're 6 games in. We need to make a push. Here's what it's going to look like. And then everyone in there totally bought in. Right. And I'm fortunate enough to have guys that I know that, again, play for the Detroit Lions. And I always ask about Dan Campbell. I was like, dude, how is he? Like, is he as like awesome as he is on the film that I see? Man. He's like, dude, he say even the janitor are bought in what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before, but it definitely speaks to having that conviction, having that vision, and having that conviction, and then everything you do gets filtered through that. And you can see that with Dan Campbell and the Lions and all the decisions that they're making and the people they're bringing in. And I think that's a big part too, is the people they're bringing in are they're high quality, high character people that fit their system, that can do the things that they want them to do. And so, we talk about building a business. It's having that vision, having that conviction, but then identifying talent, like you say, that has those qualities and characteristics that are more than just skills. You can teach skills, you can teach processes, you can teach systems, so to speak, but you can't teach personality, you can't teach drive, you can't teach determination, all those things. And so identifying those things. But then also, again, we've talked about this, Dan has a system, a process that he puts people in that allows them to succeed. And so, so many coaches, so many businesses go in and they have this, these goals and these visions and these things, but they don't necessarily have the system that is going to allow these people to succeed. And so, the winning organizations are the ones that have clearly defined processes, clearly defined systems, and they're all leaning towards that ultimate goal or vision that they have. And so taking that time to figure out what that is for your business, I think is critical, to develop that same mindset, develop that culture, identify the right people and get them in the right places within the business.
Yeah. Another thing I also got better at is that, it's good to identify those things, right? But then put it in a number perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. What's his name? Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. He always say yep, numbers just scream at you. Like, it's so if you say, hey, it's grind season, we're going to make a push for this. Like I mentioned to my team, we're losing 13. We need 30. I was like, so next month, understand there's going to be 30 evals, right? We're going to split it up even and make sure that once those evals coming in, you schedule them out for the next, the entirety of the plan of care, right? So now that we create a clear objective with measurable goals, then you can say, okay, hey, based on the amount of IEs we're going to get and the average plan of care, here's how much we can expect to collect next month. Right. So when I have
and it's all data driven. And we talk about this all the time. It's like, you got to know your numbers. Like you can make those projections because you know your numbers. Like, how many leads you need to get a discovery call, to get a discovery visit, to get an IE, to get a book plan of care. I mean, you know those things. And so you have to be data driven when it comes to things like that, because so often business owners just make decisions based on gut instinct and feel. And while that's important to an extent, when you're planning growth, when you're projecting down the road, you want to have those numbers in front of us so you can see where are we at and what do we need to get there. So that way it almost becomes machine like, where I need to get X number in the front that are going to, you're going to deliver X number in the next step and then X number in the next step and so on and so forth. And then once you get those dialed in, you can then look at those different stages along that patient journey, along that process, and see where are we falling short. Oh, our discovery calls to discovery visits is not where it needs to be. What do we need to do to improve that? And so that's where you can then come in and look at those, the process, the system, the people, the scripts that you have, and figure out what you need to do to correct those numbers so you can get those numbers up where they need to go. And it just goes back to that whole, seasons that we're in, where it's like, it's just that continuous cycle where, you solve this thing and then the next thing pops up and now you solve this. And then the next thing pops up and you solve this. But if you don't have those numbers and you can't see where you're at each stage in that process, it's really hard to know where to focus in on those improvement efforts.
Yeah. And if you're looking at everything in season, you can also define those seasons by having theme for the year, right? So my theme this year was profitability, right? Making sure we have good margin, right? So every single season I planned out is based on, and the goal that we set up, like, is this going to get us closer to the profit margin we're looking for? And if you're planning for growth, then you need to understand that your margin is going to be slimmer, right? Because you're going to be burning cash, you're going to be hiring, right? You're going to be, spending money on ads. You're going to be spending money on building system and processes, right? But if in your growth season or growth theme for the year, next year, you probably need to tighten things up. If you keep growing and growing and growing, it's just like you're going 100 miles per hour nonstop. Like something's going to break. And I think oftentimes, like as entrepreneur, we always think about growing. We always think about the next thing, right? And going back to, Alex Hormozi, he always talk about that. If you keep growing or you keep hopping to different opportunities, whether it's starting a new location, whether it's, doing some home care, whether it's taking on new things that is shiny right now, what you're doing, you're walking away from, education debt that you pay to in order to get to the next level. I think the analogy he uses was so good. It's like, if you're playing an RPG game, you get to a certain level, that boss keep kicking your ass. It's almost like you're like, all right, I don't want to go back and then refine my skill. I'd rather start a new game. Right. But guess what? When you start a new game, you're going to have to face another boss.
You're going to get there at some
point. You might as well play the same game. Yeah, you might as well play the same game. So it's always good to know that, because you and I talk off camera. We know some people who just grow. And we have helped them. And, when, again, because I've been there, I've been on the growth mode for the past 4 years. And for me, not sustainable, because it's coming at the sake of your culture. So when people ask me, like, what's the goal for this year? Hey, culture, system, processes, tighten everything up, and, leveling up the team.
So
whether through training or
we
hiring.
Actually posted a video on our channel, and I'll see if I can drop it in here for the replay.
Yeah.
But it talks about how growth is not always the answer. Because growth basically just creates more problems. And if you don't have a system and processes in place to address those problems that come with growth, you're basically just going to grow yourself out of business. And so having that clear vision, having those defined systems and processes, realizing that it's an ever moving, target that you're trying to hit. And you've got to be able to adjust, knowing your numbers, being data driven as opposed to, emotionally driven when it comes to making decisions. Um, knowing when it's time to grow, when it's time to pull back and refine operations and improve fulfillment and all those things, is what it takes to get you where you want to go. It's what it takes to build, I say Detroit Lions, but a Kansas City Chiefs, organization where,
Mm-hmm.
they're the gold standard at this point. Because they're doing
Mm-hmm.
things right and they continually adjust and, the roster's down, they come in and they fill in. Their teams aren't, not doing great. I mean, all the different pieces and parts that go into building a winning organization, you've got to be aware of those and continually working on improving those.
Dude, so why do you think people are having a hard time getting out the growth season or the growth theme?
I think it's because they're so focused on growth. Like they don't take the time to put in. They're not creating leverage for themselves. I think as a business owner, so they're continually like
Mm-hmm.
on this hamster wheel of I need more leads, I need more leads. Thinking that leads are going to turn into IEs, discovery calls, IEs, plan of care. And while that's true, they don't ever take the time to slow down to improve those processes. So they're just generating leads, but they're not doing anything to improve the conversion of those leads. A lot of times they'll say, oh, they're not good
Mm-hmm.
leads. The leads I'm getting just aren't good. Well, no, it just might be that the leads you're getting aren't ready to do anything today, and you just don't have a process in place to nurture and educate those leads over time. So when they are ready, you're the one that they call. So many businesses spend so much money to generate leads, however it is. I mean, paid ads, SEO, offline events, sponsorship, whatever the case may be. Like most businesses have enough leads. They just don't have the
Mm-hmm.
systems and the processes and the leverage in place to be able to take those leads and systematically nurture and convert those leads into patient on the back end. So that's one reason. I think number two then is, um, you know, they haven't really taken the time to create those playbooks. So when they and define those
Mm-hmm.
roles that need to happen at each step in the process. So you talk about hiring character and integrity and drive and all those things. Well, if you don't have specific systems and processes and roles for that person to put them in, they're going to get in there and they're not going to know what to do. And so, I think that's another thing is just having those internal systems, those roles and responsibilities clearly defined, having the tools and resources they can use to do their jobs well. I think is important. And then making again, I'd say the other thing is not making data driven decisions, just going by their gut, just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
winging it, flying by the seat of their pants, so to speak. Because again, if you don't have good numbers, if you don't have good data, how do you know you're making the right decision? I mean,
Yeah.
the end result will show, but there's a lot of factors that go into that end result. And so if you don't have a way to measure the results that make up the end result, how do you know what you need to improve? How do you know where you're falling short and where the
Mm-hmm.
gaps are? And so, I think those are
Yeah.
probably three things that are a reason why a lot of businesses don't scale, that aren't able to grow, is because, they're missing those three components, of being able to take advantage of the leads in the business they have the right people, systems, and processes in place, and then making good data driven decisions.
I think the way I would sum it up on my personal experience when I was focusing on growth, growth, growth is growing is just
It is.
sexy.
It is. Yeah.
It's just so enticing to be like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm just going to grow this and that. It reminded me when I used to bulk. Bulking is so sexy because you just eat whatever. You just
Yep.
lift so much weight. There's not much accountability in there. There's not much doing a hard work of like, you know,
Yeah.
calorie
Yep.
restriction, not like cutting, right? So the way I look at it is like
Yes.
growing is like bulking. You just shove 3 hamburgers in your face, lift as heavy as possible, look sloppy, and then you have a good excuse of like, oh, I'm just bulking. And then when you have to actually cut weight, when I used to compete in weightlifting, it's like cutting weight requires
Discipline.
so much
Yeah.
um, discipline. Exactly. And you need to be dialed in. So I think most business owner, when they think about growth, it's just like, I'm throwing
Yeah.
money,
No,
I'm
I think that's
growing,
a great analogy.
right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but then when you actually need to dial it down, and start looking into profitability, that's when you're actually cutting, right? So, one advice I would give to anyone listening to this is go into your P&L every single month, go line by line, see what you're spending money on, and ask, what is that? Why am I even spending money on that? Right? Because that's a habit I got into with my ops manager, where we were able to just cut things that we didn't even need, like things we signed up for like a year ago. Like, why am I still paying for this?
Yeah. No,
So, but and just to end on this is like, as far as leverage go, you can still grow by creating leverage for yourself, grow by getting your time back. And I think we're going to touch on this next week, using AI. Like, you and I have been playing with so many different AI tools, and I think next week we're going to unveil some of the stuff that we've been working on. That's just to get some time back and to actually help with all those nurturing sequences, follow-up sequences, getting new leads coming in, qualifying leads. Like, because the tool that we have now is impactful. And I always like to make fun of fintech because I don't know what they do. Our family is banked with technology. So I always say in my head, I was like, well, what if we just go become a health tech? And all we have to do is just add AI in there, right? And then now our EBITDA is going to go up 10x. That's it. So, dude, before we go, do a little, a preview of what we're going to talk about when it comes to AI stuff. 30 seconds. Leave them wanting more.
I mean, so really, it's all about creating leverage, and so basically, we'll show a couple of things we're going to showcase. Is number one, our AI sales, our sales and support receptionist, so to speak. So anytime someone hits a website, message you on Facebook or Instagram, they can respond and have an incredibly intelligent conversation and either get their questions answered or have them book a call, have them schedule some type of an appointment to get on the phone, come in for a visit, whatever the case may be. And it all happens, like, you don't even have to touch it. Once you've trained your AI, receptionist, so to speak, you can have full-blown conversations. It asks incredibly intelligent follow-up conversations in your voice, the way that you would do it, the way that you want to see it done. And it's continually learning and growing. So as your practice, as your clinic evolves, as your services expand, you bring on new things, whatever the case may be, it's continually learning and expanding and growing with you. So essentially what you have is a 24/7, 365 support and sales team that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. The other thing that we'll probably showcase is like our content creation AI system, that once you go in and plug in your clinic's information, your brand information, your voice, your style, who's your avatar, and then add services or products that you sell, it can create video content, emails, blog posts, website content. So, I mean, you name it, any type of content you need to create, which is a couple of clicks of the mouse, it'll go in and save you literally dozens and dozens of hours a month in terms of creating content. So it's getting to the point to where there really is almost no excuse at all to not be creating content, to not be sending out emails, to not be communicating and nurturing your list, because of the way the AI and the tools that are now available have made it so easy for business owners to be able to do that. Again, it's all about creating leverage. It's all about getting your time back and having your business grow and operate without you having to put in all the time and the effort. And so some of the things we're going to showcase are going to just highlight some of the capabilities that are now possible to help you get back more of your time.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, longer than 30 seconds, but very good.
I don't do well. I'm a man of many words sometimes when I got something important to say. So.
Well, listen, man, great episode. Enjoy the rest of your vacation, and then let's do it up next week, and then let's unveil some of the stuff we're working on. So again, guys, thank you for checking the show. Share, subscribe, and book a call. We'll see you guys soon.